Okay, let's get started. Can you hear me, Marla? Make sure we're on, can hear my voice here. Just type in there if you can. Okay, welcome. Great to see you. Let me turn on my camera here real quick. Hold on. Where is, oh, sorry. Yeah. Hi, can you see me? Awesome. Well, I'm April Biss. I am your instructor for DES475 Digital Photography. And I wanted to say hello to all of you guys. I had to move my computer into my bedroom because of all the noise in my office. So bear with me here. But I wanted to say hello, show you my face, show you who I am. It's always nice to see a face, especially when you're online students. I know because I've been there before. I actually was an online student. And I'll tell you kind of my little intro here, but welcome. I'm so excited to teach this class. I actually have taught digital photography before at a Tampa college that I taught for many years ago. I love photography. I almost majored in photography, so this is definitely one of my favorite classes to teach. So yay, I'm excited. Again, you can just call me April. That's fine. You don't have to call me, Professor Biss. Feel free to just call me April. And just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm actually from Pittsburgh, PA, and I've kind of lived all around since then. I went to a school here for 4 years on ground for my bachelor's in graphic design, and immediately got my first advertising agency job right after I graduated. And it was a great experience. I ended up moving out to Akron, Ohio soon after, worked for a couple ad agencies there as well. I lived there for about 6 years, and then I worked for a publication company there as well. And then after that, I moved to Tampa, Florida for 7 years. And that was a wonderful experience because I was able to do a lot of freelance for different publications down there. And then that's kind of where I got into teaching. I actually taught for a college on ground for 2 years in Tampa, and I fell in love with teaching, and it pushed me to get my master's degree. So in 2011, I went to get my master's degree, and I basically did that online. And I like to tell you guys this because sometimes people don't understand how it feels to be an online student, and I know how it feels, so I've been in your shoes. I did my master's degree at SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design, all online, and I graduated in 2012. And I absolutely love what I do. I'm able to teach and I'm able to work, and I balance both of those, which is, I think, one of my dreams. So I love it because you guys inspire me as students. I'm learning something new every day from you guys. And just, being able to work in the field while I teach is just a blessing. So yes, it is. It's definitely fun. I actually taught for, when I was going for my undergrad, I taught a really cool class for my college that I was a student for. I was chosen to teach 8th grade students that came in for a program, and I taught them Photoshop and Illustrator. So that kind of got me into thinking, oh, I really like and enjoy teaching, but I never really thought I'd fall into it until when I moved down to Florida, and it just kind of happened by accident, but I loved it. So here I am. And you guys inspire me every day. I learn something new every day. I mean, Marla, she just kind of, thank you for emailing me to let me know my times were wrong, which I never do. It's just been a crazy week. So I appreciate you looking in on me for that. The time zones were incorrect. So I did send an email out and I had to revise that. So I apologize. But thank you, Marla, for looking out for me. Just like one of those things where you plug in the numbers and then I'm like, oh, yeah, that's not right. All right, I'm going to turn my camera off because it's going to eat a lot of memory up, and they don't like us to have these up really long. So I'll stop my video here. But at least you guys can see who I am. And, like I said, it's different to be an online student. There's pros and cons to everything. But what's really cool is I've been in your shoes as an online student, so I kind of know what you guys are going through. And I hopefully can guide you guys in a way that's a little bit more relatable I like to think so because I know the challenges that come with being an online student. All right. So with that being said, before we go any further, I know there's only one person here. Marla, where are you from? Where are you at? And don't forget, there's an intro, Glendale, Arizona. Very cool. And that's where you're living right now, and that's where you're from? That's awesome. I've never been to Arizona, but I've heard it's beautiful. Like I said, I've lived in Florida, and it was really nice, but it's more of a wet heat. You guys have that dry heat. Yeah, definitely different. But a lot of retirees go to Arizona, too. Well, very cool. It's so neat to see where everyone is from. I mean, I've had students all around the world, you know, not just in the United States. So make sure in your intro, you know, just give us a little intro about who you are and, you know, read the intro prompt because it has to relate to digital photography. Yeah, unfortunately, too many. Yeah, I know. Oh, I know. Traffic and the snowbirds. But yeah, just, you know, I think the intro posts are kind of overlooked, but I think they're so important with networking because I think sometimes we kind of forget that, oh yeah, you know, we're going to graduate and it's nice to know alumni, even instructors. It's nice to keep in touch. You just never know what doors will open. And it's just truly unbelievable how many times I've run into those experiences in my life. You know, just graduating from SCAD in 2012, keeping in touch with my instructors and fellow alumni, it's amazing. So get those intros in, you guys, you know, network together. And I might not have had you in classes before. You might not have had classes with other, you know, fellow students before. So, you know, it's nice to, especially in an online environment, to know each other as best as we can. Okay, and okay, so she's from Arizona. Great. Like I said, I'm from Pittsburgh, so I'm Eastern time. So we actually are starting at 12:30. You guys are a little earlier. Oh, this would have been good info when I graduated in 2001. Right? Hindsight's always. Yes, 9:30. Okay, so it's early morning. Usually I do them in the evening, but my schedule has changed so much since like this new month has come up that I needed to shift some things around. So I appreciate you guys, you know, being, you know, flexible. Oh, the networking. Yeah. I mean, I think networking is so huge. Now there's social media sites for that as well. In fact, while we're talking about that, let me show you real quick. And I'm sure you've heard of this, and if not, then that's a good thing. You can learn something new today. Behance, do you ever hear of Behance, Marla? Behance is a great site to network on, just like LinkedIn, yeah. So if you don't have one, might be something to look into, or even just sign up to follow people that you might be inspired by. You know, there's photographers, there's illustrators, there's designers, there's advertising agencies, there's all kinds of firms on here. Yeah, and LinkedIn, yep. You can follow the work on here, which is nice. So if you're looking to maybe get a job with somebody who has their work on here, what's neat about that is you know what they're working on. So if you ever were to interview with a potential person that you're linked up on, it's neat because you can say, hey, you know, I've been following you, not creeping, but following you. I see the work that you do. So you have kind of like an inside to what they're doing. And it's nice when you bring that up in an interview. That captures their attention, knowing how, you know, you're just not trying to get a job. You're actually truly interested in what they're doing. Anyway, I wanted to show you my Behance site because I have some examples on here. I've dabbled in photography. Like I said, I've taken regular 35 millimeter classes where I've actually developed my own film back in school. I almost majored. I had 1 credit short of majoring in photography. I don't know why, I just didn't go for it. But I was focused on so much on graphic design. But yeah, I took the old school way of photography and I did the whole development, do your own film winding, you know, practice with the old cameras and yeah, I could, right? That could be definitely something I could look forward to doing maybe in the future for sure. Yeah. Hey, I'm like a life learner. I'm up for anything. So, but what's really cool about learning photography and really getting a handle on it, even as a designer, if you're not looking to be like a photographer, that's okay. But if you're a designer and you go out there, it's amazing how much, how many opportunities, I should say, that you might have to utilize that skill. I worked for example, I worked for a publication company in Akron, Ohio, and I was actually designing magazines on a monthly basis. And knowing this, the publisher knew I kind of had a background in photography, and they had asked me to take some photographs for certain covers, because I had a semi-professional camera at the time. I still do, and they allowed me to go out and take some shots, and which became the cover shots in some of the cases that I was designing for. So you might be, you might have a client that can't afford a stock photo, or a single photo shoot that would be a professional one that they'd have to actually pay a huge amount of money for commercial wise. So that may be something that you can add into your, if you're freelancing or if you're working for someone, that could definitely be a good asset to have. Yes. Okay, so the reason why I want to show you this, here are some of I don't have a ton of my photography work on here, but I did want to show you, here's some photography projects that I did. And some of these are montages. So not only did I do the actual photograph myself, this is actually a portrait of me, this particular example, but I also took, it was kind of like a mixed media where I actually did my own shoot, and then I took it into Photoshop to do montages. So yeah, this is kind of like, the whole idea behind this one was, when we live, our hair grows, and we have stories in regards to maybe the idea of your hair and the connection with time and what goes on in your life and the memories that you make. So I wanted to kind of do this really cool project, and this is for my graduate studies, to show kind of my time throughout the years. You can see my wedding picture in there, and then the house and the move, and you see the dog in there. So I montaged a few things in there that had to do with my life throughout that time frame. So a lot of these were montages. This is another one. I actually took this photo shoot of these two twin girls that lived, this is when I was living in Tampa at the time, and we went on the railroad tracks and I did this big photo shoot. And this was the whole theme of this was past, present, and future. And so I'm representing this using kind of the models as well as the color adjustments in here. So you can see the past is in the background. She's looking in and away from it, and it's like kind of black and white in the background. And then as you pull forward to the camera, you see the present looking at you in the middle, and then the future is looking up, and it's the closest to the camera. So, and then it gets vividly colorful as it goes forward towards the camera. So it's kind of neat to play around with different composites. Here's another interesting one. Definitely a Photoshop. A Photoshop example. The other ones are, this is a montage that I actually took a picture of. So this wasn't a picture that I created. This is just something that I took a picture of. This one is photo manipulation, had to do with a little bit of a gorier type of a look. So it was like a fantasy kind of a picture, but using these beautiful little snow globes, but then using them to be like a little bit more of the negative side, I guess, of things. It's a twist of things. This last couple pictures here that I'm going to show you, these last pictures, all these like very macro shots, which are very close-up shots. Take a look at these. Do you think that I did this with my camera? Would you say, oh yeah, she took a picture of this with her camera? Well, you know what, I didn't. This is a really cool, yeah, you would think so. Looks like an actual picture was taken, macro shot. But what's interesting about these 4 pictures here, these pictures following, I don't know if there's 4 or 5, more than 5, they're actually scanned from my computer. These are scans. So what I did was, this was actually another thing that I did for my graduate studies, is I took outside pieces from outside of where I was living at the time, and I put them on my scanner, my printer scanner, the scanning. scan, you would scan in like a piece of paper, and I put a black fabric. So I would lift up my scanner lid and I would put the element on my scanner bed, and then I would put a very black, thick piece of fabric behind it, and then I would scan it. And it actually makes it look photorealistic. This was kind of a really cool project that we worked on that I kind of made me think differently about scanners. Yeah, I wanted to show you guys. I thought that was cool. This is a leaf. But look at just the contrast, and you really have to make sure that the background is black. The other students that I went to school with had some really interesting ones. Some of them were more liquid oriented, which I wish I could have showed you guys some examples, but you can see mine anyway. But yeah, I mean, there's, you know, projects that I did, like this project, I took all the photographs for. Oops. So, I mean, in that regards, if you're not using a mock-up software, you definitely can do your own, I keep clicking on that, your own photography work for your pieces. So some of these are better than others, but at least you guys can see at least some of the things that I took pictures of. Pretty cool. Here's one that I laid out on a white piece of paper here. So, you know, definitely knowing how to shoot pieces for even projects is definitely invaluable for sure. I think that's all the photograph ones that I have. I have a ton of photography stuff. I just don't put them here because, you know, I'm more focused on the design aspect of it. But all right, so that's just a little bit about me. And I'm excited to teach this class, and hopefully you guys are excited too. I got some really cool projects in here. Hi, Lily, I didn't see you come in here. Welcome, just showing some of my work here. So as we go forward here, just the agenda for today, we just did the welcome, live session information. No, it's no problem. Basic course overview, we'll take a look at the late policy. She's looking out for everybody here. Thank you, Marla. That's so nice. Film and digital photography, we're gonna look at the differences between those. We're gonna look at some photo terms, basic digital camera settings and file settings, photo genres, and a video here on YouTube off of the PBS off book series. And then we'll review week 1 assignment. We'll take a look at your discussion today in your assignment 1. And then we'll look at the assessment tomorrow. And if you have any questions, you know, either by the end of this class or tomorrow, we can definitely take a look or, you know, try to answer those questions. Overslept, huh? Too much partying over the weekend. I don't know about you guys, it's like 80 degrees here today, and I kind of wanted to do this outside, this lecture, but then, you know, all you can hear everybody's just outside, and I don't want to have any interference, but I was so wanting to do this lecture outside. So hopefully it's warm where you guys are. I know Arizona is probably really hot. All right, so basically the requirements for this class is you need a digital camera, preferably a DSLR or a point and shoot digital camera. Ooh, it's supposed to be in the 90s. Yikes. Pull time. If none of the above is available, you can use cell phone or tablet, computer with latest version of Adobe CC installed, so Photoshop is what's needed. And let me know if you don't have any of the required equipment for the course. 60 and so is that where you are, Lily? Southern Utah? I tell you, I am ready for summer. It has been, I think yesterday was in the 60s, but the day before it was in the 40s and it was snowing. So yes, we are definitely ready for some heat here. I miss the heat. Yeah, we had a really cold April too. Usually we get some warm weather, but we have been getting really cold weather here. Okay, can you guys see the canvas, your class here? So we're on the same page. Okay. Yeah, Marla, I wish I was, don't rub it in. I lived in Tampa for 7 years. I had to move back here because of family. I miss it every day. I would trade it for, I don't even miss the seasons, let me tell you. Okay, so just a little quick refresher and overview. Don't forget you have daily checkpoints. These are the only way to get possible extra credit. So, and what's cool about the daily checkpoint, and they're an added resource and supplement to the course. So you really get to learn a lot through doing them. So definitely check that out. You have the Shark academic resources. Anything that you need extra help with, you can definitely go there. Live session, let me click on this because I just want to show you really quickly here. Like I said, Marla pretty much emailed me and told me, hey, your live lecture times were incorrect. So I did correct them. So hopefully no one is too confused, but we're going to do our lectures on at 10:30 if you're Mountain Time, and Tuesday and Wednesday. A little bit of a change up tomorrow because I have stuff going on that I needed to switch it. So I posted an announcement, and so definitely check that out. If that were ever to happen again, I will post them to the announcement. I will email all of you guys so you guys are all on the same page. All right, so this is where basically you'll find the times, and then also where you'll come in. You're welcome for the live session. And then if you cannot make it to the live session, and I understand this is the pro about being an online student, you can go in here at any time and access the recording. Once I'm done, it might take a little while, but this will process, and I'll have this up. It's a YouTube video. So if you missed it, definitely check this out. I always like to say, listen to the lecture. It might save you a lot of time and energy in the end. It's kind of like the meat and potatoes behind what we do. So if you can make the live sessions, that's great, but everybody's schedule is different. Course information. This is just information about the course itself. Library, self-explanatory. Student Success Center. If you cannot find a time with me or say the learning coach that's assigned to this class, which I just posted the learning coach's information for this week, you can go to the Student Success Center for extra help. Readings and videos for this class. I think this is also self-explanatory. They have required information here, that articles that you can read that will supplement the course. Also a Lynda playlist. And a lot of these are just shorter videos. There's one that's about a 12-minute video, but that's looks like the longest here. But every week is listed here. There's required articles and other information to read here. So definitely take a look at this. Week 3. I think those are really nice to have, especially the videos. All right, help desk. If you have any issues going on in the class itself, support, computer support if you're having technical support, career preparation, always thinking ahead of when you guys graduate. That's why you're here. About the instructor, that's a good place to find my contact information, not just a little blurb about myself, but here's my name, here's my email address, my phone number, and my Skype name. This phone number is my mobile phone. You can text me at any time. You can call me at any time. I do check my email very often and do respond within the 24-hour period. So I prefer the email method, but I don't say you can't call me. You can call me. There I am right there. And then course content list. This is always kind of nice if you're like kind of freaking out and you're saying, oh, I don't know what I'm doing this week. How do I access all of my media here? You can definitely do so very easily with a list. As you go down, you can see all of your other information too. There's course information, library link. So everything's kind of like on a one-page type of a deal there. A list. Any questions about that? Here's your announcements. And like I said, I post in here. This is how I communicate to you guys too. So definitely check out my announcements here. I have the welcome learning coach information and the live lecture 2 schedule change. Don't forget your syllabus is here. This also explains, pretty much everything that you guys are used to, but you could have, you know, some questions and about submissions and stuff. So my media gallery, I believe are, let me see here. I actually haven't dabbled in this either. I believe you can add your images within here. Yeah, you know what? I actually haven't really dealt with this yet either, to be completely honest with you. I think this is definitely different than your files section. Let me get back to you on that because I am not sure. It could be just a way for you to show examples, but I'll definitely ask because that is something new for sure. I haven't dealt with it yet, so. Okay, so let's go into week 1 here real quick, just to go through some of our objectives, and then we'll go forward with all the information for this class. So basically from week 1, you guys will be walking away with learning how to discuss how capturing images has been changed by technology, so kind of understand the evolution there. Analyze the difference between digital and traditional photography. Have you guys ever had experience with traditional photography before? Just curious. And that would be like 35mm film. Okay, big yes from Marla there. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I'm old too. I'm old school. All right, that's good. So at least you know where it was and now where it's become, and that's good. That's, yeah, I like film too. There's definitely something nostalgic about it. All right, so research and define a minimum of 5 photographic category subjects. Define and discuss 4 principles of advanced digital photography techniques, and define and apply 4 approaches to photographic composition. So this week we'll look at how technology advances have affected photography, research photographic category subjects, and shoot abstract images focusing on contrast in our composition. Check this great video out on the history of photography. So it's a little 3-minute video there. Check that out. Okay, we're gonna go back to my slides here real quick. Sorry about the jumping around. Oh, don't forget, I'll definitely, when I review the discussion, I'll show the intro as well, intro post we were just talking about. So what is photography? Let's get into it, guys. It basically means painting with light. Sounds beautiful, doesn't it? Capturing the correct amount of light to expose your image is the name of the game. So in addition to exposure, composition basically describes placement of relative objects and elements in a work of art. Composition is a key aspect of a good work of art. So in some cases, composition can mean the work of art itself. So we always want to think about that when we are, taking a picture. How are we, what's the composition going to be like? So thinking about that. Digital versus film. There's definitely a difference. So film cameras work using the visible light reflected from the objects in the camera's field of view when the shutter opens. The light enters the cameras and it causes a chemical change to the photographic film inside the camera recording the image. In digital cameras, it basically uses built-in computers to record images electronically, so 1s and 0s. So there's definitely a technical aspect of that is different between the two. So why use digital instead of film? So sometimes we think, okay, what's the differences here? So digital resolution is based on pixel count. The higher the count, the better the quality. Although a cleaner image that retains its printing integrity, it lacks the noise and grain appreciated by many photography enthusiasts. You can get a higher shooting speed with high-end digital cameras and a better depth of field. So there's definitely some pros. In addition, digital is more flexible and cost-effective, so no need to buy and develop film. Quick and easy to take and save and manipulate images. So there's definitely some pros to that. we are, instead of doing, taking a picture and going and with a 35mm camera and developing the film, instead digital, you're kind of the film part of it is basically the Photoshop and the Lightroom part of it. So the dark room is the Lightroom. So important photo terms. So you have exposure and aperture and f-stops in terms that you need to understand. How do you know if you have a quality camera? What do you mean by that? That's pretty I guess when I used to teach this in Tampa, I used to say you don't necessarily have to have a DSLR to take great pictures. You just have to know how to take them. You can take them with, a regular digital camera that's not a semi-professional camera. As long as you kind of know how to use the settings and take them and how you're taking them, you can have just as a beautiful quality image. Pixel count. That's a great question. As far as the pixel count goes, every camera is different, and you just kind of have to look at the actual settings for the camera and kind of what options they have on the camera itself. Some have, it's hard to explain, I guess, if there's just so many different cameras out there. DSLRs are, obviously have the lenses. I'm trying to think of how to explain this to you guys. So the compact cameras are a little bit different because they don't have as many controls. Like they have some manual controls that you can find on the digital SLR, but some of them you can't. So you have a little bit more, it's with a point and shoot is basically what I'm talking about. You have a little bit more of options. So DSLRs are becoming more affordable, so that's good. And so a lot of the point and shoot ones, or a lot of people use their cameras too, but there's just so many different things. So you could have more megapixels, so that's something that you could look for in your camera quality. So you can look for that, and I'm not sure what the actual best quality DSLR is as far as the megapixels go, but I can get back to you on that. Okay, so exposure, refers to the amount and duration and intensity of light which reaches the film and or is used to create the image. So when you are doing a manual setting, the exposure is something that you want to kind of take in consideration, especially when you're dealing with different lighting times, if you're outside, for example, or if you're inside and you're using not natural light but flash. The aperture is kind of like an eyeball, if you think about it. The opening in the camera lens which light comes through, it affects the exposure of the image, and it's changed by adjusting the f-stop. So the f-stop is connected to your aperture of the camera. The larger the f-stop, the smaller the aperture opening, the less light, the darker. Oh, it kind of covers here, sorry. So let me say this again. Change by adjusting the f-stop number of the camera. The larger the f number, the smaller the aperture opening, the less light, the darker the exposure is. So you can see the effect down below. F-stop in photography. F2 is the largest, almost like your iris in your eye is wide open. It's letting as much light as it can in. So you can see the intensity of the light that's hitting the lens, or hitting the lens is definitely brighter. So you can see the examples there. And as you go down in the f-stops to f16, it gets smaller. So think of it as your eyeball in like bright light, and then as it gets darker, kind of gets smaller, although you can adjust that for different reasons. Depth of field is also something that you can explore with, it's kind of hard to explain because you think like the bigger it is, the number would get larger for the f-stop, but it's the exact opposite. I like to carry around a little strip to kind of remind me sometimes, you know, a little printout of that. The zone of sharpness is in front of and behind the subject on which the lens is focused. So you can definitely play around with the depth of field using your f-stops as well. So there's the f5.6, f-stop 5.6, and you have more depth of field there. So if you want that where the background is really blurry and you're focused on that you know, close-up of that flower, the f5.6 is what you'll be looking at. The f8 is not as much depth of field, and then the f22 is kind of everything's in focus. You also have the shutter. So you can control the shutter. It controls the amount of time the iris is on the lens. Controls the amount of time the iris on the lens is open and allows light in. Also affects exposure and movement. So thinking about this when you're at, say, an event where you're taking pictures of people or animals that are moving, maybe even you're at a waterfall and you want to have that blur effect. The movement of the blur, your shutter speed will have to be in that range towards the right there. So you have the 1/30th, 1/15th, 1/8th. And if you want the freeze action, obviously you'll be going a little bit of a faster shutter speed. So on the left there shows a little rabbit. So it's really, really fast to really, really slow. You could do some really cool effects with this at night too. Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, so some of the cameras have really cool ways of handling this, but if you have a tripod, that comes in handy for when you do slower shutter speeds, because, you know, if you're moving your camera at all, you might have some blurrage going on with the shot that you're taking. So if you do the slower shutter speeds, you want to really have a steady hand, prop yourself up against the wall so you're steady, or use a tripod, especially if you're doing it at night. You want to, you know, get that whole night effect without having the blur. Composition, what is that? So the pleasing arrangement of the elements within a scene. So you might, in the main subject, the foreground and background supporting subjects. So if what you hear me talking about in your critique, you know, the composition, you understand what I'm talking about. And these terms are really good to know. So when we're talking back and forth and in discussion as well, you can bring these terms up so that we're all kind of using these terms and, you know, understanding them as well. Flash memory card. The storage medium that is used by most digital cameras. We should all know that. Resolution, digital. The amount of detail that the camera can capture measured in pixels. The more pixels a camera has, the more detail it can capture, and the larger pictures can be without becoming pixelated. I mean, that's pretty similar to when you're dealing with images in Photoshop. The more pixels per inch that you have, the sharper the image, as long as it was taken in a quality way. You can have a picture taken where it looks blurry. You can never really go back from there. You can make it as sharp as can be in Photoshop, but it still won't look, you know, 100%. So that's why it's always good if you're going to go out and take pictures to get as, you know, close as possible to a really great quality image, because you can only do so much in Photoshop. Okay, so there's digital camera modes on your camera. If you have some of these modes, say if you have a semi-professional camera, you'll have these. Maybe even a point and shoot will have these. Auto mode is basically allows your camera to choose the best shutter speed. So you're kind of like letting it go to autopilot in a way. So it'll set the shutter speed for the best situation you're in, the aperture, white balance, focus, etc., to take the best shot. Warning, the camera isn't always right. On auto mode, you cannot control exposure, so you might have some issues depending on where you're shooting. But auto mode is, you know, one of those things that's like the quick decision mode there, if in a bind. Portrait mode, in portrait mode, your camera will switch to a large aperture, giving you a shallow depth of field, so your subject is the main focus and works best on one or two people shooting close to the subject. And a little tip there, if you're ever shooting portrait, it's always good to just use, the best lighting is natural light. And I always like to have my subjects kind of close to a window, or if you're shooting outside, have it where you're not in a high contrast situation. So it's always good to shoot, when it's overcast, you have, that nice screened, I guess, what do they call that? Diffused light. Macro mode, less shadows, less contrast, unless you're going for that. The macro mode allows you to focus on an object very close up, so that allows you to really zoom in and focuses on a close-up of detail of your image. I love macro mode. I think macro is such a cool way to capture something in a very interesting way, visually interesting way. And I think, a lot of, if you give a camera to a little kid, they do this very well as different perspectives and angles that we kind of overlook sometimes. Okay, landscape mode is opposed to portrait mode. This sets the camera with a small aperture, giving you a large depth of field because it's obviously focusing on something very far away rather than close up. Yeah, exactly. They take the best pictures, I'm telling you. It's amazing. I have a 4-year-old. She takes my camera, and I'm like, how did you do that? It's kind of cool. They have a different perspective from where we're at. And I'm short, but it's kind of neat to see how she does certain angles. Okay, you have a night mode. It's used for shooting in low light settings. If you have a night mode, uses a longer shutter speed to allow more light into your camera. Movie mode you might have allows you to take motion video with your digital camera. A manual mode allows you to control a lot of the settings. This is where you would set it if you wanted to really play around and adjust the aperture, shutter speed, white balance, etc. to get the exposure and image you want. I would really, if you have this option, definitely explore this, especially in this class. Just go out and take, hundreds of pictures of the same thing and just switch your aperture and your shutter speed and your different settings. Just play around with it. See what happens when you do certain things. It's always good to shoot the same thing so you're not focusing on different things and then you don't quite understand what you're doing and why, it doesn't look the same. So if you're shooting the same thing and changing your settings as you're shooting that same thing, you can understand what's going on after taking it. There you go. Yeah, you might have some of your little ones help you with this class for sure. Okay, so now we have digital file formats. So there's different kinds of formats, just like in design, that we have to deal with. So 3 main file formats for digital camera pictures are the RAW and a JPEG. RAW and TIFF are uncompressed. A larger files includes all the digital information captured by the camera. And a JPEG is basically a compressed file. So they have smaller files and it can fit more on the memory card. So fine for smaller format printing and the internet. Photo genres. We're gonna take a 5-minute break here soon, just so you guys can get a break from me here. Grab some candy and breakfast. All right, so you have different photo genres. So you have different styles of photography. You have photojournalism. You've probably heard of that. That deals with the news, magazine style photography, captures events, peoples, and places. Photos are not manipulated. Some of them are, I guess. Advertising, photos for print advertising, product specific, usually very heavily manipulated. You probably have seen false advertising for sure. Oh, sorry, got an incoming call here. So yeah, there's advertising photography, there's portraiture, so pictures of people, wedding photography, studio portraits, headshots. Somebody really wants to talk to me. So that's a different type of genre. Landscape, you have, think Ansel Adams, pictures of the world, nature, places, spaces. So that's a type of genre. And then you have still life. So one of the oldest forms of photography, photographic version of the famous fruit in a bowl painting and everyday inanimate objects. There's different styles and different types of genres that are out there. All right, why don't we take a 5-minute break? I think somebody's trying to get a hold of me here. And then we'll go forward with all the rest of the information, give you guys a little break here. All right, so I'll be back in 5 minutes. Any questions before I break here? There you go, get more coffee. All right, see you guys in 5 minutes. All right, can you guys hear me? You got some coffee? Good. I grabbed some tea. I had some coffee earlier, now I'm on to my tea. That did go fast, didn't it? All right, let's go forward here. Just talked about photo genres. There's some street photography we didn't talk about. This is actually kind of tricky, street photography. They're photos of people or any subjects in candid situations in public, people walking down the street, on the subway. Little tricky. People don't like their picture being taken, so you have to really be cautious of that. I know when I was going through my photography classes in school, our instructor was like, you really have to kind of be incognito because people, you know, can get pretty upset if you're taking a picture and you don't ask permission. So it's usually a good idea to kind of like ask for permission before doing so, or else you get in a lot of trouble. So street photography can be very cool if done in the right way, and you can do it incognito too if you're, you know, can blend into your surroundings. Abstract photography, photographing an object's pattern or shape in a way that avoids obvious recognition of the subject. You know, obviously abstract is the keyword there. What's neat about abstract photography, you have to ask, and can you publish without permission? I guess it depends on what the photograph is being used for. If you are taking a picture of somebody, you know, there's an actual individual in there, and you're going to be selling the image for commercial use, then I probably would say, yeah, you need permission. If you're using it for class purposes, probably not so much. Yep, just have it in writing. That's something that you could just write up yourself just to protect yourself. Have them sign it. I'm sure there's probably templates online that you can get. And that's something that you can, you know, if they're not interested, then obviously you just go on to the next. If you're in a situation where you're working for somebody and you're taking pictures, they probably will have their own, you know, rules and how you would go about that. Permission, maybe they even have a permission written up slip. Abstract photography is really interesting. What about a group of people? That's a good question. I think if you're doing a group of people and they're obviously, if they're knowing that you're taking a picture of them and they're okay with you taking a picture and they know what you're using it for, I think it's okay. You might obviously need permission to, if you're going to sell the actual photograph, you know, like stock photography, or, you know, you're going to have it used in some type of commercial way. If you're taking a group of picture group of people in your family and you're just taking it to show on, you know, to other family members, I don't think it's a big deal. Exactly. But you really have to protect yourself for sure. If you're just out there and just taking random shots of strangers. I know I had a story, which now looking back at it, I thought, oh, I'm kind of stupid for doing that. When I was taking a photography class in my undergrad, one of the themes was to take pictures. It was like street photography. And I didn't think about it until I was actually out taking pictures, and I went next door. I used to go to a private Catholic college, and right next door to our actual campus was the mother house, they called it, and that's where the nuns lived. Beautiful campus, and they had a program there for Catholic students for like kindergarten on up to 6th grade, I believe, and they were all there in the recess area in the common grounds playing, and they had like their uniforms on, and I honestly went there innocently just to take pictures. And I had some people kind of come up to me as I was taking pictures, because I wasn't disguising myself at all. I just was taking pictures of these kids, not thinking. Yeah, and then now that I think about it, yeah, you know, people have issues, especially with kids nowadays, and that was over 10 years ago. But yeah, now thinking back, I'm like, wow, it was kind of bold of me to do. And so yes, just something to think about. You know, use your common sense for sure. You don't want to get in trouble or hurt. Okay, so anyway, abstract photography I think is really cool to do for design purposes, because you know we're always trying to gain that gain somebody's attention, pull their eye in somehow. And doing so abstractly can definitely do that. If you're doing, if you're really zooming into a subject more than macro shots, and you're making something look different than how it's perceived, that's really interesting, and that will pull you in. And abstract photography can definitely do that. So interesting things. Here's some examples of some genres here. So it'd be like street photography. This is like product setup, advertising. More street photography here. The landscape. Portrait. Some of these are more obviously composited than others. Just portrait. This is like an abstract, almost macro in a way too. I think this is paper, folded up. Landscape. Some product shots. Street photography. It's an abstract. Oh, there we go. So there's really some really neat, interesting ways you can shoot to make something look different, and knowing kind of what you're going for. Usually in the projects that we're going to have, they're going to have a theme. They're going to be something that you're going to aim for. So you guys can hone in on your skills. All right. Any questions so far with kind of the genres there that we kind of went over? Go back here to home. Okay, so before we get into the assignment details, I did want to go over the discussion and the intro post that you guys have. So if you go to your modules, you'll see that you'll have the intro post in there. You can go to discussion too, the discussion area, but there's an intro yourself. Don't forget to post this and introduce yourself. Just give it, where are you from? Tell us about who you are, what your goals are, maybe once you graduate. And then also don't forget to answer the following questions. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How much experience in the field of photography do you have, if any? Is there any particular subject matter of photography that moves you, like landscape, portrait, or a photographer that you like? So, that's a good place to start. And, we can all get to know each other there too. Yes, the last one was trees. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think I went to week 1 here. We just read over the objectives, so we're good. So let's go into your discussion. We'll go read over that. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll go from there. All right, so I'm not going to read the background. I'm going to have you read the background. I'm just going to go right to the prompt. So basically what we're going to be discussing is the differences between digital and traditional photography. And for those of you who already have some experience with the traditional, this is great. This is something that you can use your own personal experiences to within your discussion. So for your discussion this week, you will do research and discuss the history of photography, the elements involved in producing the images, and the current technology of digital photography versus its film predecessor. You may also choose to show visual examples of film versus digital photography or historical photography to help illustrate your discussion content. So in this discussion, research and discuss the following questions. Number 1, discuss at least 2 technical differences between digital photography versus film. So what's the technical differences? 2, find and discuss the 3 pivotal points in history where technology of photography changed dramatically. Number 3, list at least 2 benefits of using digital photography from visual and design standpoint. For your citation, utilize ProQuest or ABSCO for at least one of your citations. You can find articles on the history of photography or the benefits of current digital photography technology. Don't forget your initial post should be posted before midnight on Wednesday, and reply posts should work to develop a group understanding of this topic. You can challenge each other, poke holes in each other's theories. You know, if maybe somebody's seeing in a different perspective, you might bring up a new perspective on how to look at it. So, you know, definitely answer these questions in, you know, you don't have to do it in order, but, you know, within your discussion post. Bring in some references, maybe some examples. Yeah, you know, I think that would be best. If you did your initial post before midnight on Wednesday, that'd be great. You can respond to a peer post before then on a separate day, just as long as they're on two separate days, the responses. You can have your response post on the same day that you put your initial post, however. That makes sense. The reason behind that is just so that you guys can, you're not like kind of lumping everything together. You're not posting your initial post and then responding and on the same day. It kind of allows for more interaction between you guys. Yeah, check and read the new ones, exactly. Yep. So here's the reply requirements. Don't forget you're hitting upon all of these 2 APA citations, 200 plus words, your follow-up responses, 50 plus words, all of that good stuff here. And then here, if you don't know what the APA format is or looks like or how to format it, here's an example here you can click on. So it's all right there at your fingertips. You know, just be smart about it. You guys are college students. You know, there's a framework you guys need to go by, and it's discussions are important because, you know, I've been in your shoes. I've been an online student, and I thought when we started our classes, oh, I'm not going to learn anything from this discussion. And boy, did I prove myself wrong. By the end of my graduate year, I think the discussions were where I learned a lot. And that's only because I had a lot of the students kind of change my perspective in a lot of ways. So the more interaction that I have with other students and the more that they kind of change the way I thought in the discussions with different things going on, the more that I learned that I never would have thought about before. I've never been able to find the info from ProQuest or any of the information from the school library. Okay, so ProQuest and could be, I believe, is in. We have your library here. You mean in the library section? Here's your links here. Okay, so you just go into the library, and here are your 2 that I just talked about. So you can click on that and go into it. If you have any, you know, you can just kind of do a little search there. Oops, I just clicked on something. Sorry. If you have any issues with that, below here it says, if you have any issues, blah, blah, blah. There's some steps here that you can definitely try. If you have issues with that, let me know still. It's like you have to log in. Did you know that this is where do you see them in your library links? Oh, okay. Okay. So when you go in there, you just can't find the resources themselves. So I think, let me see here. When you do the search for this particular discussion, I think it gives you some ideas to search for. And one of them is history of photography. You can find articles on the history of photography or the benefits of current digital photography technology. Oh, okay. Yeah, you might have to do some fishing. This doesn't mean you have to be stuck to, you know, you want to utilize outside sources. If you have books at home too, I know I have photography books, and you find the information in there, use that. As long as you have the APA in there, you're good. Yeah. You can scan in examples as long as you're citing the source of, if it's not your original, you know, work, if you're citing that source, you're good. Any other questions about that? Is that pretty self-explanatory? I'm not going to I want you guys to go and research this information, so I'm not going to dive into this too much. We kind of talked about a little bit today, but I want you guys to really go out and research this yourselves and gain the information for this. And some of you guys might know already, it's just kind of how you say it in your discussion. Okay. Very good. All right, let's move on to your assignment. How many of you looked over this yet? Read over it yet? You have? Okay, good. Just kind of scrolled through there. Okay, so basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a really cool, fun, and exciting project. I just think all these projects are fun. I want to go out and do them too. I might just do that. This one is contrast and abstract, okay? So basically read through the background. I won't read word for word for you guys can do that. But look at these examples. You're going to be taking shots of high contrast images. Okay, so here's some examples of high contrast images on the top here. And this image has a high range of contrast made up of primarily of black and white areas and very little gray. And then you have low contrast, and the example here, unlike the image above, the image primarily various shades of gray, so a lot of neutral colors with very little black or white areas in the image. Okay, so there's also examples of abstract photography. You're a lot picky. We just saw some of these examples. I'm gonna go right to the prompt here. So read over that, take a look at those images. So this week you will identify and shoot high contrast compositions while also exploring new ways to view and photograph everyday objects as abstract content. Choose subjects that are high in contrast and have interesting lines, patterns, or textures for your images. Fill the frame of your images so you are focusing on the contrast and detail of the subject rather than the subject itself. And don't be afraid to shoot the images from a different point of view, distorting the true shape and appearance of the object or scene. Utilize light to create or increase the contrast in your images, which can be submitted in either black and white or color format. You may also utilize imaging software to enhance the contrast or colors in your images or change the mode to black and white. Yes, we can have critiques in our sessions, yep. Yay. Submit three abstract images with high contrast for this assignment, along with a brief description, so minimum of 50 words per image, for each image that explains what the image is, why you picked that subject, and what techniques you use to shoot the image and or adjust the image in the with the imaging software. So 50 words per image. 3 abstract images with high contrast. Submission instructions. Combine all 3 images and their descriptions into a single multi-page PDF. Name as such. So assignment, first, last name. That's a good question. Can we use photographs we've taken in the past? I think for this particular project, I would go out and utilize your camera and shoot ones that you have not taken yet so that you can go out and really experiment. If you used all older pictures, you know, you're not really getting that experience of maybe playing around with your manual settings, if that makes sense. I'm sure you can find all kinds of pictures, but I think you'll gain more out of it if you go out and actually purposely go out to shoot for each project in this way. Okay, any other questions? So as we're talking about this, there's different ways, there's some tips that I want to give you guys. So high contrast photograph purposely includes strongly contrasting elements. So we talked about this in black and white photography, this is big. So if you want to even switch your settings to black and white, if you have that setting on your camera, you might want to do that right away and try that first. This, you know, definitely would be something that you could start out with. So a high contrast shot will will have relatively few gray tones. So not too many neutral tones, but lots of strong black and whites in them if you're doing black and white. So a high contrast color photo might have bright, almost iridescent elements casting deep, dark shadows or single like colors within that photograph. So think about it if you're deciding to go with, doing the color photograph. So one of the easiest ways to instantly increase the contrast of your photos is to switch your camera to the black and white mode. So check to see if you have that. By limiting that color palette, you automatically raise the contrasting possibilities of your images. So if you really want even stronger contrast, look for the camera's contrast settings. And this basically might require you to take the camera off its default automatic mode and switch it to manual mode. When you find that contrast parameter, you can bump it up to +1 or +2 and monitor the results. What I would do is focus on one subject if you can, and just kind of play around with those settings. If you can bump your settings up a couple notches with the contrast settings. Another way to intensify the contrast of your photos is to choose or create a high contrast lighting. And one technique is to shoot your subject in a dark room with a bright light source shining through a window. One side of your subject will be bathed in hot, bright, sharp colors, white light, which will contrast dramatically with the opposing shadows. So the classic high contrast shot is a silhouette, basically. So you can, definitely play around with that. Do you ever take a picture of someone with the light behind their head? You get that silhouette. That's kind of what they're talking about. Yeah. So we're shooting for that, right? Aside from in-camera settings and lighting techniques, there you go. The best way to boost the contrast of your images is to choose subjects and compose shots in such a way that maximizes their contrasting elements. And okay, there you go. If this sounds difficult, that's because it really is. So the artful balancing of contrasting photographic elements takes more than a sharp eye. It also requires years of practice, so it might be kind of a little tricky. You might want to just kind of look at famous photographs and be inspired by other visual art for inspiration. We just kind of looked at a few. Pay attention to how the photographer or artist uses contrasting lighting, colors, shapes, textures, and even moods to draw the attention to the subject and hint at the inherent meaning of the image. And then you get out there and, shoot a couple thousand pictures. It's always good to take more shots than, just a few, because, you're really going out there and experimenting. Let me try to get some examples up here. So you don't want to just, limit yourself. It's always good to kind of get out there and get as much experience and play around with it. Okay, I just did a Google search really quickly here of high contrast photography. So you can kind of see some examples here. Some of them are portraits, some of them are landscape. You could go outside during high noon where, there's no clouds in the sky and start taking pictures. Those usually are very contrasty. Yeah, a lot of these are black and white. High contrast color. Some examples here. Some of them black and white. I guess this is a good example here of a color that's high contrast. All right, so I wanted to show you how to, say if you go out there and you take a photo and it's not as contrasted as you want. You can do either or both, yep. You can do black and white or color or both. You might want to mix it up just to see what what you come up with. You might learn a lot just mixing it up. Okay, so let's say you took a picture. And the picture that you took, I'm going to go into Photoshop. Okay, so when you're done taking your photographs, you can go into Lightroom. I'm pulling this into Photoshop for now just to show you guys. So say this is a portrait that I took for this class, okay? And I want to make this high contrast. You can kind of see that it's pretty neutral. Like there's no real light tones that are bright. There's no real dark tones that are dark. So when I shot this, I may have kind of, let's just say, I wasn't kind of ready to shoot for a contrast. I wasn't actually shooting for contrast. I was just shooting for a portrait, and it wasn't very contrasty. But I can definitely do something to it in Photoshop to make it more contrasted. So I wanted to give you guys this possibility to kind of play around with if you want to really experiment a little bit more, and say your shots didn't come out nearly as well as you thought. Maybe your color ones aren't as contrasted, and you kind of want to bump it up a notch. So here's one way you can do. I'm going to do a demo here. You guys can pay attention and try it on your own if you like. You don't necessarily have to, but you know, something that you can try. Yeah, you can do the histogram. Yep, there's a lot of different ways you can do this. I'm just showing you one way that you can do this, but this is just kind of like a technique here that I'm going to show you here. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to open the image that you want to apply the high contrast look into Photoshop. And if you don't, like I said, get this to be contrasted right away, you know, this will definitely amplify it. But the best thing to do is to shoot it as much as you can contrasted for this particular project. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a duplicate layer here. It's just one layer in the background. If you don't have your layers palette, go up to Window and choose Layers. You can see it might say locked. Mine, I already unlocked it, so you just double click to unlock it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to make a copy of this background layer. So you can do it several ways. If you press Command J, if you have a Mac, it'll copy it. If you press a Control J on a PC, it'll copy it. So you'll see the copy right there. And we're going to name this Layer 2. So just double click on it. Say Layer 2, and we'll rename this Layer 1. Okay, so you got Layer 2, Layer 1. All right, so now you're going to go to the Layers panel and change the blend mode of this duplicate layer from normal to vivid light. So with Layer 2 selected, see where it says normal? We're going to click that, and we're going to choose a different blending mode, and we're going to choose vivid. And you're going to see the vivid, you know, obviously it's going to change the look of the photograph. So it doesn't look real good now, but it'll get better in a few moves here. So just kind of be patient here. Okay, so now press Command I, or if you're on a Mac, if you're on a PC, you do Control I. So Command I. And basically you're inverting the layer here. So it should look pretty gray at this point, as you see here. Okay, next you're gonna go under the filter menu under blur. So you're gonna go up with Layer 2 selected, go up to filter and choose blur. And you're gonna choose surface blur at the very bottom there. You're gonna click on that. When this box appears, you're gonna type 40 for the radius and 40 for the threshold. I already have that in there, so I'm good. This can take a while if it's for this particular filter to do its thing, so just be patient. If you're running this on a 16-bit version of your photo, this, you know, you might wanna go get some coffee because it might take you a little while. Mine didn't take too long, and just press OK. Just kind of a heads up there. Okay, the next thing we need to change is the layers blend mode one more time, but we can't change this layers blend mode from vivid light or it will mess up the effect. So instead, we're going to create a new layer at the top of the layer stack that looks like a flattened version of the image. That way we can change its blend mode to get the effect we need. This is called creating a merged layer. And then you can get this merged layer by basically pressing Command Option Shift E if you're on a Mac. So Command Option Shift E. PC would be Control Alt Shift E. So with Layer 2 selected, if you're on a Mac, Command Option Shift and E. Okay, it's not doing it. Oh, maybe it did. Let's see here. No, it didn't do it. I think I actually have to choose layer 1. My apologies. Command Option Shift E. There we go. So we have the layer 3. I was on the wrong layer. So choose layer 1 and do the Command Option Shift E. If you look at the layers panel now, you'll see the background layer on the bottom. It says this is layer 1. Then the surface blur layer. So we got to shift these. We got to go whoop, pull that up so you have the middle one is your surface layer. And then we have the new merge layer at the top of your layer stack as seen here. So it should be layer 3. Okay, now that you have this new merge layer, you need to delete the middle layer, the one that you ran the surface blur filter on. So you're going to click on layer 2 and drag it into the trash icon at the bottom of the layers panel. You can always just hit trash if you have it selected and just trash it. We now have to deal with all the funky neon colors on this layer. So we do that by simply removing all the color. So go under the image menu under adjustments. So we're actually going to go up to layer 3 at this point, and we're going to go up to adjustments under image. So image on your menu bar, adjustments. So selecting layer 3, go up to image adjustments. Okay, and then we're going to do desaturate to remove all the color. So now this layer is just gray. We're almost done. You're going to change the blend mode of your merged layer, the one named layer 2, which actually I think I just layered 2. This is probably renamed now that we got this one here because we deleted layer 2. To overlay, and now you can see the tonal contrast effect applied to your image. Okay, so you would just go right to your layer 2 and you go to your blend modes and you do an overlay. Now you can see the tonal contrast effect applied to your image. And because this one was more neutral, it may not be as contrasted, but when I hide this, you'll see the difference here. Yeah, you know what, I noticed that line too. I'm not quite sure how that came about, but I'm going to zoom in and see if that's just a viewing thing. See how it went from a neutral to a more high contrast. Let me see if that's just a viewing thing, because I did notice that too. When I did that, what was the step that I did? It was one of the steps here. Oh, the surface blur is when that happened. I'm not sure why that happened, but the surface blur, it made that weird funky line. I'm not sure why. And it did it more than twice. So I'm not sure why that happened. It'll be interesting to see if I had another image, if that actually put that in there, because it wasn't in there before. It's almost like a line of pixels that didn't get converted over. It's really weird. Yeah, you know what? I'll have to do another image just to see if that happens. It's really weird. She is cute. I just got this off of pixabay.com just for an example here. But I think this is kind of a neat way to experiment and just see, you know, how you can use these different adjustments and blend modes in Photoshop to kind of create a more contrasted image. Yeah. And I'm sure you can do it in other ways too. There's a million different ways to do one step in Photoshop as far as, or not one step, but one effect. So there's probably so many other different ways that you can do this, but this is definitely one that you can experiment with. And then when you're ready to, if you were to do it in this way, you could save it as a JPEG in Photoshop for your purposes of placing into your file there. Yeah, you could probably play around with the channels for sure. Those are your different, you know, your color modes in there. You definitely change your reds and your greens and your blues. I mean, you even have your other adjustment layers up here where you can play around with your vibrance, your, your exposure, curves, your levels, all of that can be explored too. Let me go back here. I'm sure you can probably do like an adjustment level layer, sorry, on exposure. And this is kind of blowing out some of the areas here, but you can kind of see how that's getting more contrasted there. Playing with the offset. Adjustments. You also have your levels where, yeah, there's so many different things you can play with, where you can actually have a your dark point and then your light point. These are kind of like stops here, and then this is your neutral. So if you were to drag this, to the right and then pull your white to the left, you can have more contrast added to it as well. You can play with that. Oh yeah, that's better than your history class, right? It's a nice balance. Any questions about that? You're going to submit your assignment all together, 3 images in their description, to a single multi-page PDF. So what I would do, okay, I would save this as a JPEG, and then if you guys are familiar with InDesign, you guys have, yeah, you guys probably are familiar, hopefully. I would just open up InDesign and create your layout there, and then place in your 3 images with your copy. So I'm opening, I didn't have InDesign open, so give me a second here and I'll show you how I would do it. It's up to you. You don't have to do it this way. You could do it in Word if that's something that you want to, if you're more familiar with. But InDesign is great for you guys because, obviously that's what you guys should be doing it anyway as designers. All right, let's do 8.5 by 11. I'm going to open up InDesign here. Hold on, I see somebody has a question here. Hold on. Chat. Okay, lost my chat. Do you want the abstract to be something you cannot tell what it is? I think that's the point of the abstract, is so that you don't know what it is. So yes. I think sometimes you can tell, and I wouldn't mind knowing, okay, I know what that is, but that's a very interesting abstract shot of it. So it doesn't have to be like super abstract if that's kind of what you're getting to here. Yeah. I think this is a low res image here, so that's why it's a little smaller. Okay. So what you could do is you could have, for this particular assignment, you could have 3 pages maybe if you want, and have them presented here in this way, and then have your type go over top, and you can put your name, class, assignment, and you can start copy where you will be typing your info about this photograph and explain your steps and process. So this would be, the type would go with that, and then the next page, it's up to you how you want to kind of format this. Yep, we're almost done here, so you're good. Yep, and then when you're done, you could have multiple pages. If you want to do an image per page, that's fine. If not, you can put them all on one page, that's too. As long as the images, they're not super small, is kind of where I'm getting at here. Like this image is, let's see where my info is. This is a good size, so like 4 inches. You can have it bigger if you want, but I wouldn't go any smaller, just because I really want to see your image. Yeah, exactly. And then when you're done, go ahead and go up to File, PDF Presets. You can do smallest file and create your PDF, name it, and assignment 1, put on your desktop. And if it's 3 pages, it's going to be all in one page, or one PDF, sorry. and then you just submit that PDF. And the PDF is actually on my desktop, but it has 3 pages in it. I think you guys kind of get what I'm saying there, so I'm not going to show you, but open the PDF before you submit it. Just make sure it looks good. Everything looks like it's, you know, viewing properly, and I can see your actual photographs. Okay. So that's pretty much what I have for you guys today to cover. So we're going to probably wrap it up if you don't have any other questions or want to review anything else. Tomorrow we'll go over your assessment, and if you want to, you know, show any work or whatever, if you have any questions tomorrow, we'll definitely look at that. Just don't forget, tomorrow we won't be meeting at the same time because I have stuff going on that changed the schedule. So if you go to announcements, you'll notice the schedule change in the latest post that I made. So let me click on that just to see if I wrote that in there right. So instead of meeting at, let's see, it would be Mountain Time. Let me see if I wrote that right. Yeah, 12:30 would be Mountain Time. Let me just double check this here real quick. Yes, so 12:30 Mountain Time. So there we go. Yep. Sorry for any confusion. Thank you, Marla, for looking out for me as well. I appreciate it. Sometimes those things happen, and I really appreciate your help and sending me your heads up email there. All right, well, you enjoy your day. Hopefully you can go swimming or something on this hot day. It was nice to meet you, and maybe I'll see you tomorrow. No, it's great that you have my back. All right, have a great day, and we'll be talking to you on the boards.